And honestly, I think that has been one of the ways that we keep showing up at the top of the map pack, is because we are getting an average of 1 to 2 reviews a month, I would say right now.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome, everybody. This is Dustin Harris, and you are listening to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. We are sponsored today by a couple of great companies. Of course, Working RE Magazine. Just read a great article this morning from Isaac Peck, the editor of Working RE. Folks, if you're not reading that magazine, you should be. Check it out. Go to online, if you will, or in your mailbox. WorkingRE.com is where you find it online, and make sure you're signed up for their hard copy. Alamode, of course, is a sponsor here as well. Alamode is the company that I use for my appraisal assignments. You should be as well. Check them out on their website, alamode.com, or pick up the phone and call them at 800-ALAMODE. I want to welcome back to the program a longtime friend, Miss Brianne Ledbetter. Brianne, welcome back to the Appraiser Coach Podcast. Thanks for doing this.
It's definitely a pleasure of mine.
Oh, well, thank you. That's awesome. It's my pleasure, I guarantee. I want to catch people up. If they recognize your first name, it's probably because you were on episode number 69. Believe it or not, clear back in November of 2015, almost 10 years ago. Isn't that crazy?
That it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
I was kind of surprised myself because I remember having you on that. I remember some of the conversations we had. We talked about your MLS being so crazy as to not have GLA, and it really does seem like yesterday.
They have changed that. They have changed, but it's even more convoluted now because they do include GLA, but you don't have to fill in the information. If you do fill in the information, you can cite any one of, I think it's 3 or 4 sources. So you can cite that it came from public records, you can cite that it came from the seller, you can cite that it came from the agent, or you can cite that it came from an appraisal. So whenever we do statistics on GLA, it's crazy because some of the times it's not even in there and none of it is consistent.
Well, I highly encourage people to go back and listen to that episode because you've got a lot of unique things there in Pennsylvania that you deal with, and I think the stories are great. Catch us up a little bit. Tell us a little bit about where you've been, what you've been doing, what's been going on since the last time you were on the program, Brianne.
I honestly, in 2015, it's so long ago. I think at that point in time, I really didn't have much of a structure within the office. I've gone through a couple changes where I've had some staff appraisers, I've trained trainees. Right now, I'm at the point where I still have 2 support personnel that are in the States. They're not out of the country VAs. I have a trainee that I'm working with right now that I've been working with since October. And I have an employee that does property data collection for my non-lender assignments.
Nice. That's so cool. We might want to dive into that here in a little bit, but one of the things I wanted to mention, Brianne, I think this is kind of interesting. The day, so we of course record these, in advance. Obviously this isn't live, but when this episode airs, it will be episode number 939. Okay, now that may not mean much to anybody, but we're almost at 1,000 episodes. But the interesting thing is it will air on March 17th, 2024. Now, if that date means anything to you, Brianne, that is exactly 10 years after you attended your first mastermind, the first mastermind the Appraiser Coach ever had in Salt Lake City, Utah, on March 17th, 2014. 10 years in the mastermind, my friend.
I guess I need that much help.
Well, I'll tell you, and people that know you would readily disagree that you have brought a wealth of experience and knowledge, insights, and that's the great thing about the mastermind is so many minds coming together to help each other to improve. But a decade in the mastermind, Brianne, why do you keep coming back?
I'll be honest with you. I've had to think about whether or not it's something that I've wanted to continue with. I mean, being the only one who's left from the beginning, there's been quite a bit of turnover from just perspective of people get to a point where for whatever reason they choose that they, go a different route. And I've had to ask myself, is this something I want to continue with? And it really keeps coming down to, as much as, I appreciate that you say that I bring, experience and some wisdom to the table, I feel like I get more out of it. It's just one of those things that I can't imagine not being a part of it, because there are times, like, I know that we have one coming up in April that we're doing in Boise, and I've always got something that I want to discuss that I feel like if I'm not there to discuss it, I'm not going to get the answers I need. And I feel like I would either stall or move backwards in the business. And there's just been so many examples of, points in time that I have faced difficult decisions or kind of not knowing what direction to go to. And the mastermind has kind of just really given me that focus of where I need to be. Case in point was, I think it was the first one that we had in 2021, where I almost wanted to give up on appraising and find a different job.
Yeah,
I remember the discussion and the agenda that I had after that meeting, which was, I took an entire weekend. I went to a hotel. It was in Pittsburgh, so it wasn't far from home, but it was away from home. And my entire focus that weekend was, why am I doing what I'm doing? And where do I want to be? And whatever that looked like, whether it was continue appraising or do something different, I needed to come up with a plan. And it was really the mastermind that helped me put my entire life back in focus, not just the business. So that's why I stay with it, because I need it.
Awesome. That was a fabulous answer. Not scripted. I promise we didn't plan that. But thank you, Brianne. Great insights. You just got back from the VIP Mastermind in Paradise that we held on the beautiful island of Kauai. And I think I embarrassed you a little.
Still got the tan.
Yes, indeed. I think I embarrassed you a little bit there when we stood you up in front of everybody and honored you for being the longest running member of the mastermind at that point. You've been in this longer than anyone else. Talk to us, if you don't mind, just briefly. How was the mastermind in Paradise? Was it worth the plane ride?
Oh, it was more than worth it. I mean, I think there was such a different vibe to it than the typical mastermind. I think one of the things that I definitely appreciated so much about it was not only the actual roundtable discussions, but then the how would you put it? So each one of us that's in the mastermind, I think we each have our own areas that we tend to excel at. And so, like, Tom Boyce blew my mind away with his use of Excel. I mean, that was just absolutely incredible. Just so a couple of the members you had asked to kind of give a little bit of a talk on an area that they tend to be an expert at, or they excel at, or things that they have found to be extremely useful in, propelling their business forward. And I think that was another element to it that was so different in that environment that I really appreciated, because you got a bigger sense of kind of how they implement it within the business, and to see the actual nuts and bolts of what it was. And then I think the other thing was definitely the social aspect of it. It really helped to, it just helped to build a stronger relationship with them as an individual. Even though the sunset cruise was not enjoyable for some.
The waves were a little choppy for those of you who weren't there. It was some got a little green. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Well, Brianne, thank you. I appreciate that. And it was so good to have you there. We're already talking about the next Mastermind in Paradise. We're playing around with a couple of different areas, possibly a cruise. So, we'd be excited to have you back on that as well. I want to pause and remind everybody that we're sponsored by a couple of great programs, of course, a la mode being one of them. When I say programs, folks, I'm talking about your software program. What are you using to type your appraisal reports? May not seem like a big deal to think about. Who cares, right? It's just an appraisal report. Folks, it's about productivity. It's about tools that allow you to be productive in the field. Just yesterday, I used a la mode in the field. I had all of my comps uploaded. I was able to do an inspection on the device, my phone, do the sketch, fill out page one, all of the photos. I was able to get all the comp photos while I was in the field and then send it back to my assistant. It was incredible, and it will be for you as well. If you're with any other software, check them out. Go to alamode.com or 800-ALAMODE. I talked earlier about Working RE magazine. Working RE, of course, has a plethora of information for real estate appraisers. I spoke earlier about the article that I just read yesterday by Isaac Peck. Isaac knows the appraisal world inside and out. And if you want to understand where your career is going, where this industry is going, that is the place to stop. WorkingRE.com is where you go to find out more. Again, it's WorkingRE.com. All right, folks, welcome back to the program. We have Miss Brianne Ledbetter on. Thank you for being on, my friend. I want to catch up a little bit with you because you're doing some pretty cool things. And we've talked a little bit about this. We talked about this a little bit in Hawaii. And of course, we talked a little bit about this off air before we got ready. But I think it's something that many people are interested in right now. Many people that have focused on lender work, AMC work, they're wanting to transition more to the private work. And you've kind of done that. Talk to us about that.
Absolutely. So I remember when we first started the mastermind, there was a gentleman who was part of the Salt Lake group by the name of Matt, friend away.
His name, he's pretty well known. Yes.
Yep. Who that was one of his biggest focuses. And at that time, while it seemed, appealing to me, it just wasn't the focus of my business because I had so much lender work, and where I was located, it was not the optimum focus for me. But I always admired just his drive to get that non-lender work and a number of the ways that he implemented being able to do it. So when I started really focusing on it was probably late 2021, early 2022. Okay. And I got some numbers. So in 2021, 14% of my assignment total was non-lender.
That's still pretty impressive, by the way. I want to pause on that for just a second. I don't think most appraisers can say that they are doing 14% of their work as non-lender.
Okay. And just for clarification, that is direct non-lender orders. I'm not even talking about direct lender,
right,
private bank work. That's just purely somebody calling up because they need it for a divorce, a tax appeal, estate pre-listing. That's what I'm talking about. 2022, it was the same number, 14%. 2023, it jumped up to 30.3%.
Wow.
So I doubled it in 2023.
Impressive.
And I think one of the biggest reasons it has been that hyper focus on marketing through Instagram, Facebook. When I do a blog, I'll make sure that I drop it anywhere I can.
Sure.
And for a while, that 14% for 21 and 22 was predominantly agent referrals. So I've always tried to keep really good relationships with agents, but then I started really kind of putting a focus on Google reviews. And so the metrics that we've been keeping, probably about 90% of the private work I get right now outside of a particular contract that I have has been all through Google.
Wow. So when you say Google, just to clarify, you're talking about people going to their computer, I need an appraiser in Westmoreland, and they type in Westmoreland appraisal and Brianne's name pops up.
Correct.
Most people
And
would kill for that. How do you get that?
so I'm not like Chip, where I understand all the ins and outs of the SEO, but what I have taken from what he has taught and just from experience is, number one, I keep a website that is fresh by doing blog posts on a semi-regular basis. I'm trying to do at least one a month, sometimes every other week. It just depends. There are times that I get so busy I don't keep up with it, but then so that's one way. The other way is that we have taken from, I think it's on your site, the idea of once an appraisal is done, we send out an email as a follow-up that basically says, we just want to check with you and make sure that if you have any questions that we can answer them and let us know how we did. And there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down. The thumbs up sends them directly to entering a Google review, and the thumbs down automatically opens up email for them. Yep. So that if they weren't completely happy, they can send us an email. It's not sending them to the Google review. And honestly, I think that has been one of the ways that we keep showing up at the top of the map pack, is because we are getting an average of 1 to 2 reviews a month, I would say right now. And I'm making sure that I respond to them. And I'm making sure every time we get one that I'm dropping it on all of the social media pages. So I'm just keeping the information fresh and making sure that people have that information. And one of the pages that I have, again, another Matt Friendaway idea, was the Ask the Appraiser. So I have a lot of local agents that I have good relationships with that are on that page. And that's where I also drop an image of the 5-star reviews. So it's just always keeping us in front of their mind.
Very cool. Yeah, you mentioned you don't know a lot about SEO, but you obviously do, because all of the stuff that you just talked about, that is SEO, right? Search engine optimization. It's pushing things to Google so that Google says, yes, this is relevant. This is good. This is fresh, as you say. This is information that people are looking for, and this is information that people want. One thing that I will say, Brianne, is as a listener, they're driving around taking their comp pictures, they're hearing you, and they're thinking, man, I want private work, but my gosh, that's a lot of work.
So is your question, how long does it take?
Is it a lot of work? I mean, it sounds overwhelming that you're going out and getting reviews and doing blog posts and putting them on social media. And some people, I think their head explodes and just says, you know what, I'll just stick to AMC work. It's so much easier.
So I think there's 2 answers to that. The easy answer is really it doesn't take that much effort. And part of that is because I do have staff that helps out. So the follow-up emails, that's done by one of my office assistants. When it comes to blog writing, I'm using ChatGPT to kind of help with doing that process. And I know that there are other people out there that use basically ghostwriters to do it. So there are ways to do it where it doesn't take a lot of time. But honestly, the way that, like with the blogs, I would say I probably, I don't know, when I actually write one, I'm spending 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops, getting it ready to drop, doing the putting it across the different platforms. When it comes to the reviews, like I said, I don't send out the email. And when it comes to, making sure that once we get a review that people know about it, that takes 2 minutes.
Love it. Yeah, you've automated so much in your office that I think to a listener it seems overwhelming. There's a lot of work involved, but I love that you've utilized the law of delegation, technology, all of those things that we teach in the mastermind for you to be able to focus on where your focus needs to be, right? And that's appraising and running your appraisal business.
Well, I think the other thing that's daunting, which was definitely for me, is, what do I, especially when it comes to blogs, we'll just touch on that. What do I have to say? I remember us having this discussion in the mastermind when I first was like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not a writer, and I don't want to pay someone to write my stuff because I want it to sound like me.
Right.
And honestly, what I've learned is that we have more information that people don't know than we realize. And it can be something as simple as it. And so If I come across a situation in a house where a borrower has asked me a question while I'm sitting there, well, what do you think about this? I'm like, oh, that's a great blog post. So I'll get it started in the draft section with just the information I want to write about, so that when I do sit down and write, I'm like, oh yeah, that's something I wanted to write about. So it is not as difficult as it seems. And ChatGPT has really made it easier, because
Sure.
I've given it samples of my writing and then said, hey, I want you to write a blog about this, that it can be read in less than 5 minutes, and it needs to sound like I would say it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Here's an example of how I write. This is me writing. Now duplicate it, but do it with a different topic.
Yeah, and I still have to do a little bit of revisions, and I don't know how many times I have to tell ChatGPT, stop putting things in bullet point form. I hate that.
I keep having to say, stop saying in conclusion. Damn it. I don't like in conclusion. Right. So, Brianne, thank you. I think have inspired everybody that's been listening today. Those that want to get into private work. Folks, yes, it's work. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, there's a lot to do to get there. I guess I should ask this, Brianne, is it worth it?
Oh, absolutely. Because I guarantee you, I've done the numbers. If I did not have that 30% private work in 2023, I would have had to lay at least one person off.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. It's just the way it is. And right now, with everybody complaining about how slow lender work is right now, we won't get into that. But right now, for the month of February, I've got about 80 to 85% of my work right now is private work.
How cool is that? That is so awesome. Yeah. Congratulations on that. Congratulations on 10 years in the mastermind. And you mentioned that we're going to be going to Boise. We typically meet, of course, in either LA or Nashville, or we do have an online mastermind as well. Every once in a while, we do a little jumping around. Like I said, we just got back from Kauai, and instead of meeting in LA next time, I think people are a little fed up with LAX, so we're going to skip to Boise, Idaho in April. And of course, a shout out to everybody listening. You're always invited. Your first mastermind is free. Now, obviously, you've got to, travel costs. I get it. There's some expense there. You got to shut down the office. You got to come. You got to be there. But we won't charge you anything to sit in that chair and be a part of the mastermind. Not just look, not just be a fly on the wall, but actually actively participate. If you're interested in going to Boise or LA or Nashville or the online one, please reach out to me. I would love to hook you up with that. Brianne, thank you for your time today. Thank you for being an inspiration. Thank you for being my friend. It's great to see you this morning, and I do appreciate you. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.